Women have a natural abundance mindset, which is why they overwhelmingly initiate divorce and breakup. So what I'm saying is that guys need to also have an abundance mindset where they can walk away from the girl, because most girls hold their leverage in most relationships and guys have no power in their relationship. And what I'm saying is that...
Okay, I want to talk about the divorce laws, okay, and what you very often hear from the Manosphere about how the divorce courts are very biased in favour of women, and a lot of men get screwed over, and about how dangerous marriage and divorce is for men. Okay, now, when I very first came across the Manosphere, okay, the first sort of like red pillars that I came across were the MGTOW community. That's men going their own way. This is guys who are opting out of marriage and out of out of marriage and out of living with a woman, okay, because they say it's risky for men. That like well, first of all, they make the claim that the majority of the time the man earns more than the woman, because women have an instinct to look for the best protector provider, and they believe that rarely will a woman marry a guy that earns less than what she does, okay? And they say the trouble with that, and they say like about how more divorces are filed by women, because in the West, I think it's about 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce, and they say that between 70 and 80% of these divorces are filed by women, okay? So what they've always been saying in the Manosphere is that it's too risky for men, because any woman could just divorce you on a whim and then take you to the cleaners in the divorce, and the man loses most of what he's worked hard for. And they claim, well, the picture they seem to sort of present in the Manosphere is that, like, when divorce happens, the woman always ends up better off, well, mostly ends up better off than the man, and, like, she's living a life of luxury on his money while he's in poverty, okay, and this is why they say that it is risky for men to get married, okay. Now, when I, like I said, first came across MGTOW and listened to their content, I never disagreed with them opting out of marriage, okay? Like, I think if people, man or woman, if you don't want to get married, you know, fine. Or like the guys would say that the divorce courts were very biased against men, and I believed what they said. So, for, you know, okay, I'm not arguing with that. If you think marriage and divorce is risky and you don't want to risk it, fine. I never disagreed with that. I did disagree with them over a lot of their views on female nature. They are very, like most of the red pillars, very misogynistic, try to sell the idea that women have just evolved to be bad, and men, on the other hand, are all good angels. They can do no wrong, and men are all deep and wonderful, and women are all shallow, and, you know, women are sort of stereotyped as, like, these shallow, psychopathic gold diggers that apparently only love a man for his utility and his money, and, like, if he stops being, you know, providing utility and providing resources to the woman, she's just going to dump him for somebody better. And the state makes it so much easier for women because she can just pull the divorce cord and then, like, have his money and then move on to something better. This is the thing that they've always sold. And I kind of, though like I said, I didn't disagree with them if they say they didn't want to get married, and I didn't disagree with them about unfairness in the courts. But I do disagree with them that the way they talk as if women don't have any feelings, or that all divorces are women's fault. Okay. But the reason why I want to talk about this today is because over time I've, like, gradually sort of heard more and more stuff that's sort of really making me question whether it's even true. Like, okay, because there's a lot of stuff that it surprised me over time, because I did believe this, that, like, and I'm not doubting, I am not doubting that there are some guys that have been totally screwed over by a woman. I'm not doubting that for a minute, and I'm not trying to be unsympathetic to that. What I'm going to disagree with here is about how common this is, okay, and whether it really is men that are more likely to end up worse off than women. This is what I'm going to be talking about, okay? Because, well, first of all, I mean, the first thing that I learned that, like, kind of surprised me a little bit was that actually, statistically speaking, it is women that are more likely to end up in poverty after divorce than men. Okay, now that surprised me because I had listened to so much of this in the Manosphere about how, you know, how it's the men that are worse off and the woman gets his money. Okay, and how they sort of speak as if women just divorce men on a whim. Okay, and I always did disagree with. I mean, they make out that all divorces are women's fault because they say, like, oh, well, 80% of divorces are filed by women, so it's, women that break up the family. And I kind of thought, well, like, hold on a minute. I'd need to know more than who just filed for divorce, okay? Like, you're telling me that no woman files for divorce because the husband cheated on her, or the husband was abusive towards her, or there can be problems in a marriage that could be both of their fault, but it might be the woman who files for divorce. So I just kind of thought it's not fair to just put the blame on whoever files for divorce. But I did think that, like, if it's always everywhere, it's more often women that file for divorce. I thought, well, maybe it is the women that give up easier, as a generalisation, is what I originally thought. Okay. But I didn't agree with them that it means that all marriages and all problems in a marriage are women's fault, because anybody who knows humans, anybody who's got a little bit of common sense and knows other human beings, knows that it's ridiculous to say that one gender's all good and one gender's all bad and one gender's always to blame for everything, okay? Like, I don't agree with anybody that says that women are all angels, but I also don't agree with these people that make out that men are all angels. It's like, come on, okay? Okay, so yeah, the first thing I learned, is that it's actually more women, okay, which I kind of think, well, that disproves this theory that women are financially incentivized to divorce men, because that's something that Pearl Davis keeps saying. Okay, so she's always saying women are being paid to leave men, women are financially incentivized to leave men, and that seems to be the opinion of some MRAs as well.
Except say, fine, just go ahead and do it, dude. Marry her, take care of her, and then when taking care of her is not enough, and the average woman will file for divorce at 7 or 8 years, which happens to magically coincide with guys' max income potential.
Okay, now that is clearly not true, because statistically speaking, it is more likely to be women that are financially worse off. And, I would assume that is because women are less likely to pursue a career if they're having children, or they're more likely to give up their job to look after children, and then also because the woman, normally has the kids if they get divorced, so, it's going to be harder for her to work as many hours and have children, and if she doesn't have career experience because she's been a stay-at-home mum, or she spent more time with the children, that's likely why, women financially are worse off than men after divorce, okay? So I don't believe that women just take divorce lightly, not most of them, and just divorce the guy on a whim. Also, the other thing, and I've mentioned this before on my channel, is that surveys show that divorce is 5 times more likely to happen if the wife gets seriously ill than if the man does. Okay, which kind of disproves the red pill theory that a woman will just drop a man like a hot brick as soon as he cannot provide resources and utility towards the woman. Okay, because the woman is, statistically speaking, more likely to stick by a sick husband than a man is to stick by a sick wife. Okay, there's that. Okay, so it's sort of like gradually sort of realising, like, well, it's not entirely true what these guys from the red pill community say. This picture that they paint of women being these gold-digging psychopaths who just don't really love their husbands and have got no problem just divorcing him on a whim, taking him to the cleaners, and she lives a life of luxury on his money while he's in poverty, okay? That is not the majority of the outcome, okay? And once again, I'm not being unsympathetic to if you're a man and you have been totally screwed over by a woman. I'm not being unsympathetic to that. I'm just disagreeing with the opinions that these guys have, that that's the majority of what happens, because it isn't, okay? Now, normally, with divorce, it doesn't normally go to court, okay? Most of the time, when couples get divorced, they sort things out between themselves, okay? The child custody, the dividing of the assets and all that. They sort it out between themselves, okay? Not very often does it get to court. Now, I did believe what the red pill community and the manosphere have always said about how the divorce courts, you know, if it does get to court, in those few examples, that the divorce courts were very biased in favour of women, and that women are, you know, it's hard for men to get, like, custody of their children, even if the woman is, like, an unfit mother. I did believe that, okay? Or that the women are more likely to get the guy's money and all that. I did believe that, okay? But I've heard stuff lately that are thinking, like, is that even true, right? Because a little while ago, I listened to this video. It's done by a YouTuber who calls herself Feminist Cat Lady Spinster, okay, which I love that name, by the way. You know, she was talking about, this was an interview that Paul Elam and Pearl Davis had a little while ago. And, you know, she brought up the divorce courts, and she was showing, this was some video footage, like, from some other guy who was talking about the actual biases in divorce courts. And I will link her video down below for anybody who wants to watch that. And he's actually saying, like, it's actually the opposite way round, okay? That if a man actually does go to fight for custody of his children, that it's actually the man who is more likely to get custody, all right?
When we look at fathers who ask for custody, they get sole or joint legal custody in 84% of cases. But Rosenthal is not happy with these numbers, so he fudges the math. He drops joint custody entirely from consideration and focuses only on sole custody, saying that when fathers seek custody, they get sole custody 45% of the time. But when mothers seek custody, they get sole custody 74% of the time. Which he then uses as the headline for his article, that mothers' requests for sole custody are granted 65% more than fathers' requests, or about 1 2/3. But as I've covered before, men self-report that their wives are 4 times more likely to be the primary caretaker of their children than they are. When we look at stay-at-home parents, again, mothers are 4 times more likely to be the stay-at-home primary caretaker of their children than fathers. And when we look at census data and custodial parents, again, mothers are 4 times more likely to be the custodial parent than fathers. But family courts are assigning sole custody to mothers, not at 4 times, but not even at twice the rate of fathers, shows an incredible bias towards fathers.
Now, that actually, like, really surprised me, okay, because, like, I really did believe that, like, the courts are massively biased in favour of women. Alright, and I know that, Lauren Southern has sort of said as well, since she sort of talked about her divorce, she said that, like, she's come to realise that some of the things that the manosphere say, they don't seem to be true. Okay. Alright, so
I don't think this whole parental alienation thing is as common as we pretend it is. I think it's a very convenient narrative for some men like my husband who genuinely have rejected co-parenting and tell that to their friends so they don't have to live with the responsibility of what they have done. And if you look at the actual data, once again, 90% of cases where men pursue custody, they get it. So and in most cases, it's men who don't pursue custody, who aren't interested in it, that this is happening. And it was very shocking for me to learn all these statistics. So, and there are cases, let me be clear. I have a man that I know that I grew up with, I did classes with, much like my friend Ella, left with 3 kids and a farm, wife cheated on him, you know, left the kids. Those cases are real and they are horrific. And my heart goes out, single fathers, just as powerful, amazing as single mothers in holding that society together. But we need to have a conversation of accountability for anyone who is involved in abandoning a child. Women are always the one that leave relationships. They're always the one that are the problem. So I must not be treading hard enough. I need to tread harder. I need to tread harder. And you just, anytime something bad happens, you have to go in a circular motion. It was like little bits of it. My husband leaving me and me begging him to do counseling, begging him to do co-parenting, and him saying, no interest in that. I need to go start a replacement family. I was like, wait, this isn't what I've heard on the internet. This isn't what is supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. Men don't do this to women, right? And then I think going going to my lawyer and trying to figure out how to rebuild my life from scratch and realizing that I'm going to have to do all of the paperwork in order to move on. Like, he wouldn't do any of the paperwork, so I was getting punished on my taxes. I wasn't able to get any money back for having a kid. I was literally getting fined because I couldn't get divorced. He wasn't paying child support, anything. So even though he left me, my lawyer's like, yeah, you have to apply for divorce if you want to move on with your life. Well, that certainly got the wheels going of, wait, do 70% of women initiate divorces, or are a lot of women left with the paperwork because a man has to prove that he's paying child support in order to file for divorce when he's left? And I'm like, whoa, a lot of these even the stats, like, we got the numbers, they don't really check out when you look at the nuance of what it plays out in the real world as. And it was a long process.
Well, a lot of the, people in the red pill community, they very often, they say stuff like, they say, taking the red pill is like they become unplugged from the matrix. They've learnt the truth that everybody else doesn't see. And, once you've learnt the truth, you can't unsee it. And, they say stuff like that, okay? Now, I personally have found, as somebody who has spent quite a few years now familiar with red pill content, actually gradually learning that not a lot of what they say is actually not the truth, I kind of feel like I'm being unplugged from a matrix. Like, I really do. This sort of claim that, it's, marriage is so risky for men because every woman, they say, it's not that every woman would, it's that every woman could. Every woman on a whim could just divorce you, take you to the cleaners, ruin your life. And it's like, when you really look at it, when you really look at the facts, it's like, which gender is marriage and divorce more risky for? Statistically speaking, it's the women that are more likely to be in poverty than the men. Single mothers are heavily looked down upon in our society, and that's something that the Manosphere contributes to. They make out that single mothers are complete losers, while, divorced fathers aren't. And now it's looking like even this about, the divorce courts being massively in favour of women, it's not true that all of them are, okay? Not to mention, if you talk about other statistics, more women die as a result of domestic violence. Okay, women die every week of a result of domestic violence. Now, I could say, well, if all women just opted out of marriage and opted out of living with men and all women went MGTOW, women going their own way, well, this would save loads of lives then, wouldn't it? Because the women that, because it'd stop women from dying of domestic violence. Now, if I said something like that, already know, I'd get accused of being misandric and told that it's all women's fault for choosing bad men and all this kind of thing. And it's not that every man would beat his wife to a pulp, it's just that every man could. It's not that every man would dump his wife when she's seriously ill, but it's that every man could. It's not that every man would cheat on you. It's not that every man would leave you a poverty-stricken single mother. It's just that every man could. So go MGTOW, ladies, because it's not worth the risk of divorce. In some areas of the Manosphere, they've kind of really tried to guilt women as well. They say stuff like, oh, well, the divorce court is the fault of women. We don't blame feminism, we blame women. We put the blame solely on women for them, for men being taken to the cleaners and all that, and it's female nature. And women could do something about the courts, but they don't. And they've really sort of lay the guilt onto women. And they say that women don't empathise with men and the struggles of men and all that. But how much sympathy do they have, for women? Considering the fact that, statistically speaking, more women end up in poverty after divorce, and they have the stigma of the single mothers and all that. It's like, how much sympathy do these guys have for these women? It's like zero. They just think that single mothers are losers. They call them hoes and stuff like that, because the assumption is everything's the woman's fault. And even if the woman's like, well, actually it was my husband that went off and left me for somebody else, and wasn't bothered about his kids, they'll just say, well, this is your fault because you chose him.
And as I go through this, I go, you should have chose better. You should have chose better. Should have chose better. You almost lost $200,000. Well, you should pick better. I love using their terminologies against them. How nasty. Does this man not realize he hit the wall, chat? Does he, wait. Does he not realize he hit the wall? Does he not realize he old and unwanted?
And it's like, well, then you're telling us we should sympathise with you for your bad choices, and not only that, but seem to try to, like, guilt all of us for your bad choices. They talk about how it's so dangerous for men, and as I've shown before, like, these guys from the whatever podcast, like, tried to say that, if a woman's in a violent relationship, she should just stay.
Young and goes into a marriage and has kids when they're like 18, 19, 20. A year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive. Even though it might be rare from what you guys think. If it would happen, what would you recommend for those people? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
People can't divorce. It's not a real
Even though it
thing.
might be like
People are too.
you want to stick with
I mean, nowadays are just.
So anyone that might be in a situation, what would you recommend?
It is such an extreme example. I can't give a prescription for what other people should do.
What about if two people get married, have a kid, and then the wife starts cheating? Do you think they should divorce?
Jesus himself said in cases of adultery, divorce.
Do you think divorce is worse than physical abuse?
For children, for children, yes.
In a violent relationship because, single mothers are the worst, and apparently it's much better for a child to be brought up in a violent environment than being raised by a single mother. Okay, so these guys say that, and these guys as well, just like the rest of the manosphere, talk about how risky it is for men to marry women because of divorce and stuff like that. Yet they'll go and tell women that women should stay with violent men, even though a woman, risks being killed by a violent partner. I mean, which is worse, being taken to the cleaners in divorce or being killed by your partner, okay? And to be clear, I know women can be abusive to men just as much as men can be to women, but I'm just saying, women are physically not as strong as men, so it's not surprising that more women die, okay? I'm bringing it up because, they're always talking about the dangers for men, yet it kind of looks like, marriage and divorce is, statistically speaking, more dangerous for, women. But also, men's rights activists and the red pill and all that, they are not actually helping men, by giving them this false information, right? Because there's going to be plenty of guys who probably don't even bother going to court to fight for custody of their kids because they already believe they don't have a chance, okay? If they've listened to the manosphere tell them over and over and over again, that the courts are biased, you've got 0 chance of getting your kids if you go to court. It's of course a lot of men are just not even going to bother when actually, some of them might have had a good chance of getting what they wanted if they went to court. So, in a way, men's rights, they're not helping, they're discouraging men. Okay, and, a lot of the other propaganda they sprout in the red pill community, the woman bad, man good, and, men are so deep and women are so shallow kind of thing, it's that's got more sort of unbelievable and more laughable as the red pill community have got more extremer, because the guys it's coming from, say Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit sits there saying, oh, men love women for real, while women don't love men for real. And it's Myron Gaines doesn't even like women, he hates women. There is no way that he could love a woman deeply. I don't think a lot of these red pill extremists could love a woman deeply, or even at all. They don't even like women. So when it comes from these guys that, oh, men are so deep, it's kind of laughable, right? And I'm not disagreeing, I'm not saying that most men aren't deep. I think most men love their wives and their partners deeply. But I'm saying that as the red pill gets more extreme and you get more crazy people in the red pill, it's becoming more laughable. This sort of, they're deep and women are shallow, and oh, they're the ones viewed as utilities when they view women as utilities. It's a lot of, I think, projecting their own personality onto women and sitting there talking about how terrible women are and how selfish and horrible women are, when it's actually them, when it comes to the extremist in the red pill. Okay, so that's all I've got to say about that for now. Thank you for listening.
Women have a natural abundance mindset, which is why they overwhelmingly initiate divorce and breakup. So what I'm saying is that guys need to also have an abundance mindset where they can walk away from the girl, because most girls hold their leverage in most relationships and guys have no power in their relationship. And what I'm saying is that
I don't know how that's true. Like, women fare worse than men in almost every degree after divorces. So the idea of pretending,
what are you talking about?
They make more money, they have better dating strategies afterwards. Men just do better than women in almost every single metric post-divorce.
Oh!
So hey, Google it. Financial outcomes, divorce, men versus women. You can look it up. But you guys know this on your podcast. If you were scrolling through Tinder and you see some dude is like, oh, single dad, that's like whatever. For some women, that might even be a plus. He's got a kid, he's a cool dude, or whatever. If you see single mom, what are you assuming? That she lives in the fucking Hamptons? That she's in Beverly Hills?
So you're telling me
single mom, she's probably lit as no shot.
They get wiped up all the time, bro. Listen,
single moms get wiped up all the time.
Come on.
Single motherhood in a lot of communities is like one of the most destructive aspects to families, and it's really hard for single moms to find another guy because guys would rather not raise another kid than a woman be willing to jump into the guy with his own kid.